So it is upon us. Season 9 of New World is here, and let's cut to the chase. While Season 9 is looking vaguely interesting, the main thing that we're going to be talking about this year when it comes to New World is Season 10. But Season 9 is here. Let's talk about the things that we're getting, because there are some interesting things in here. The patch is going to be 5 a.m. Pacific time, which it says is 1 p.m. UTC. I don't think it is. I think it's 1 p.m. BST. So 1 p.m. for UK, 2 p.m. for Europe. And the go live time will actually be 2 hours after that. Every time they do this in British summertime, they seem to get it wrong at the moment. I think that's wrong. It might not be, but I don't think those two times are equivalent. Anyway, I go on about that all the time. I'll not do too much of it here. We are, of course, getting the new game mode Capture the Flag. The downside to this Capture the Flag is that, yes, Outpost Rush is going to be off during it from July 29th to August 8th. And that's because they're going to monitor it, you know, to make sure that there's actually enough people to do those queues. The Capture the Flag modes are super fun. I personally enjoyed the is it the Verdant one? The one where it was kind of like Ebon Scale Reach Dynasty themed rather than the Bridge one. But they were both pretty decent as it is. We're getting 2 maps and, you know, it's actually a really fun mode. They've made a couple of changes with this mode, which we'll talk more about when we actually get to the patch notes. I said Verdant. I think I was getting confused with the 3v3 arena. That's coming as well. Just a new map there. Pretty cool. Nice map. There's some big changes to the free-for-all zone as well. I say big changes. There's a new thing here where if you like stack up, you start taking damage. I think you'll deal less damage, you'll do less stamina damage, and you'll take more damage and you'll take more stamina damage. That's if you like near other players, you start getting a debuff. Pretty interesting way of countering stacking. I don't necessarily know if it will do anything because there's not that many people in the free-for-all zone at the moment. And maybe you could actually just stay away from each other and then converge on the same target. Feels like you could work around that. But what they are doing is that they are speeding up the gather times of the chests, increasing the amount of doubloons as well, I believe. And they're going to give a little bit of extra gear. So some of the gear now is getting scaled up. So 720 to 725, 690 to 700, 700 to 720. So you can pretty much use this as some relatively decent catch-up gear. There are a couple of new artifacts as well. We've got Yeaterson's hammer, which is pretty interesting. Kind of don't really see a place for Yeatersons unless you're just trying to troll. Like, I don't think it's very competitive, but it's a fun weapon. I'm sure in that regard it'll be enjoyable. Crescent Wave is a great sword, which does that like projectile thing when you do heavy attacks with it. Only works on the hammer, only works on the greatsword itself, which is interesting but not that impressive because you like lose damage on some regards because I think you do 150% weapon damage, but your melee heavy attack damage is reduced by 50%. So give and take. The most interesting thing with the greatsword though is that it actually gives you 12% base damage to targets further than 10 meters away, which works on both weapons. I could see maybe like a bow greatsword being useful there, maybe even a hatchet, but I'm not too convinced about that one. We also have the Plague Herald Helm, which is basically going to put disease on the target. Now that's more interesting. I think probably going to get use in wars on some like support characters. I don't know if anybody in like PvP is going to be selfless enough to run that in like Outpost Rush, but I think this has definitely probably like some war utility. Not my kind of vibe, but yeah, maybe. Vengeance is getting changed, and basically it's going to do more healing as long as you don't have a hot on yourself. My view on this is that it's probably a PvE weapon at best. Most of the time you're probably going to want hots on you. I don't necessarily rate it, but maybe, you know, maybe it's good. This isn't a new one, by the way. This is Vengeance, just updated. The Grey Wizard hat, though, is getting changed where the charge of your heavy attack is going to be quicker if you are above 50% mana. Very much a heavy fire staff. When I say heavy fire staff, I don't mean heavy armor. Doing heavies with a fire staff, that could be pretty decent. Will it be attuned, featherweight, etc.? I don't know. Freed is getting changed, and it kind of sounds alright at first because it's going to do more crit damage if you're behind them. It's going to put weaken on them and stuff like that. But then you realize that they can only be ambushed like once every 15 seconds, and then you're like, I don't know if that's going to be that good. I don't think so. Maybe you do. Tresna the hammer is getting updated, so instead of it just doing lifesteal to enemies that were, I think, did they have to be on the ground or stunned? It's now like if they're rooted or stunned as well. It must have been knockdowns to knock down enemies. Now it's rooted and stunned as well. Makes it a lot more interesting. Like if you're going to rock maybe like sword and shield hammer and you're not using an artifact, yeah, maybe Tresna will be in there. The Summer Medley Fur is back. This is a snooze fest for anybody who's actually done it like a long period of time, like if you've done it for several seasons. However, it's back. Basically, you'll play music, you'll catch fish, you'll have a great old time. That's pretty much going to last the entire season, we think. There's a couple of events, you know, some world bosses, some decent gear you can get from that, some boosts as well. does basically confirm, by the way, we think that season 10 will be October 28th for anybody who cares about that right now, which I do. There will be a new Outpost Rush map preview. They're not showing us that because I'm pretty confident it's going to be the same theme as the new zone, which I think will be Dunwood, vampires, werewolves, etc. They do go into more specifics later. Oh, my voice went a little bit weird then, but they're making some combat and mechanic adjustments. Primarily, one of them is going to be haste. Haste is getting nerfed across the board. The flail is getting changed so that it effectively does more damage if you're not wielding a shield. It does more healing if you're not wielding the life staff. Maybe one more that I forgot, but we'll come to when we actually get to it. For the actual notes themselves, they go through the haste changes, and yes, they're lowering the cap from 50 to 40%, but haste across the board is going to be harder to get. Zephyr Cakes in Outpost Rush is going down, consumable haste is going down, White Rune haste going down, life staff haste, fire staff haste, hatchet haste, haste from the bow, musket, rapier, sword, blunderbuss, ice golem, warhammer, they're all going down, okay? Haste down across the board. Pretty much everywhere that had haste is getting reduced, and we think that's a good thing. I mean, we'll have to wait and see if that actually does what we're trying to get it to do. It might need another tweak, it might be too much, you know, time will tell. They're doing a couple of other interesting things. For example, they're removing the block stability modifier from heavy and light. I'm not 100% sure what that is. I'm assuming it makes blocking in heavy better than blocking in light, and now it's just going to be neutral. It could have been the other way around, but I don't know. There's going to be armor pen added to siege weapons in Wars and Outpost Rush. Yeah, could be useful. I don't know. Don't really do them. Don't really use them in Outpost Rush and don't do Wars. They're also changing the crosshair that when you're in melee, it will now like highlight red, but if you've got a ranged melee weapon like the hatchet, it'll do it from further away. Keen Beacon is getting changed so that it's going to get updated functionality to increase crit damage instead of crit chance, and updated its max values. Yeah, okay, cool. This one sort of worries me. If you're a Shirkin Heals Andy and you've got a Healing Breeze ring, it now says it'll only trigger on the first application of a heal. I think that's going to still be fine. I think that's more for like healers with HOTS, you know, where it's like triggering every time. Healers obviously want to pay attention to that. I think if you're a Shirkin Heals boy, I think you're still okay. I'll go. Next, I'm going to do some rapid fire buffs or nerfs. The bow is getting slightly buffed as the cooldown of poison shot is going down. There's also a fix here to doing an unintentional hip fire after a rain of arrows, which I'm pretty sure was happening to me. I just didn't realize it was happening to me. I just thought I was sucked and I was bad at the game. Fire staff is getting nerfed pretty much, well, I wouldn't say across the board, but it's got quite a few nerfs. Smolder's getting, it's going to do less damage per tick. Fire restoration is going to not do as much cooldown. Pillar of Fire's cooldown is going up by 5 seconds, which is pretty crazy. And then a couple of fixes. And then these are the key flail changes. They've added a buff to its outgoing healing by 50% if the flail user doesn't have a life staff equipped. Added a buff to its outgoing healing by 15% if the user is not in heavy equip mode. So heavy healers, not going to do as much healing, basically. And they've added a base damage increase of 15% if the flail user doesn't equip a shield. So you can do it more like a damage weapon. Then there's a couple of changes that increase lifesteal from this, whatever, right? You know, you can read them. No changes to the Great Axe, just a little fix. Hatchet is I think effectively nerfed. If you're in a really aggressive hatchet, it's not that big of a change. I kind of feel like the hatchet might be one of the strongest weapons in the game, and I do feel like the hatchet needs maybe more serious nerfs than this, but I would say that this nerf is very much targeted at the hatchet users who are running away. Combine that with the haste, it should be a little bit more risky now to be a hatchet user, get in, try and assassinate somebody and get out. However, if you are an aggressive hatchet user, yes, they've reduced the duration to 5 seconds, but if you keep hitting a target, then you can get that up. And of course, with a hatchet, you go very fast. So an aggressive hatchet user might not see much of a change there with Berserk, but a defensive healer trying to run off, yeah, that could be, you know, pretty much a strong nerf. Entombed, a slight buff, reduced cooldown of Refreshing Frost, and the knockback of Wind Chill is being increased, which I don't like because I hate Wind Chill. But, you know, fair enough. No real changes to the life staff. Slight nerf to the musket, just because you can't target a lot with the shooter stance, but no real changes. A fix that I don't understand, so I'm not going to talk about to flourish and finish, but it sounds like it's now actually going to hit certain AI that it wasn't doing. And then a big nerf to Sword and Shield. Now, I thought they might like reduce the damage or something like that, but they've actually gone after the CC of Leaping Strike. It's now not going to stagger. Now, that is very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it's obviously just a straight up nerf and it will make combos and stuff like that a little bit harder. Two, I do think the more you reduce CCs, the more you encourage range to like come back and start fighting. However, the Sword and Shield probably, you know, was obviously very good and is getting used across the board. So probably like a nerf was needed. I'm not sure if I agree with this nerf. Like its whole job is to be a CC bot. So yeah, I guess the Leaping Strike from a distance stagger probably, you know, felt a little bit toxic. So I'm not against this. I'm not sure it will I'm not sure what that will do to the wider context of the game. Possibly nothing. Possibly pretty big, you know, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. Void Gauntlet is getting nerfed pretty much. Leeching Blades are now going to scale with focus, so, you know, nerf to that basically. Weapon damage is going down on some of them. Added a cooldown to Invigorated Rupture. Yeah, just a couple of key targeted nerfs at the Void Blade. Void Gauntlet and Void Blade. Will it be good? Will it be enough? Probably we'll see. They all seem like very small, but actually I think added together, all of these weapon changes will be pretty sizable in the meta. Well, not sizable, but, you know, you'll feel it. Warhammer's going to have its window adjusted so that some of them feel a bit smoother, which is good because I'll tell you right now, the Warhammer at times can feel so goddamn clunky. Big one for a lot of people, the Stormform Heart Rune is getting reduced in duration, and that's one that I pretty much use across the board, so I'll have to pay attention to that. This next one, they used to make it, or at least it is the case right now, that mounts in a town basically go the same as running speed, and it feels really bad because there's like no reason to use them and it just looks awkward. However, I always thought that they did this so that everybody wasn't mounted up in town, because I think that could also just be a little bit weird. But they're ditching that because they're increasing the mount speed in settlements. So now get on your mount in town and run around. A couple of fixes there. I'm not going to read the fixes because it's boring. A couple of changes to capture the flag. So the flag carrier debuff now starts weak and then stacks up over time. Now, the reason this is important is what would often happen is you get a tanky boy, they'd pick up the flag, and then you'd be able to like nuke them down because, you know, they were weakened. Now they may have a chance of getting away a little bit more. That could be bad, it could be good. You know, I'm not sure. The jury will be out on that one. Some extra abilities now will drop the flag when you use them. And then this one's really interesting because they've added a pity rule to capture the flag. So if a team is ahead by 2 or more points at the 5-minute mark, they'll automatically win on the next flag capture. Now, I assume that means the one that is ahead, like if you're behind, they're gonna like let you catch up. The only thing I could see here with this being a problem is that the team that is ahead might just try and stall if they want to. But I guess the more they stall, the more likely it is they'll start losing. But I mean, I don't know why you'd waste everybody's time like that. But okay, fair enough. I could have seen it been very easily just first to 3, but they've gone with this pity rule instead, and I'm not against it, it's okay. They've made a couple of changes to the Outpost Rush map. If I'm honest, I don't really understand this one. Partly because I'm not 100% sure which map this talks about. Move southwest and southeast ramps up to Star and Moon outposts. Are they literally meaning that you can't get there from going out of the new map? You now have to like go around because there's no way of getting into your fort, and then you now have to build the bridge? Because if that is the case, that is so dumb. Like, I understand that the bridges were not really useful, but now they've made it like incredibly annoying, and they've probably changed the game in a way that I don't like, or at least I don't think I'm gonna like that Outpost Rush map change. I don't like it. I mean, it gives a reason to the bridges, but honestly, you could have just permanently added the bridge, and I really don't think the game would have changed that much. This is a bad solution to the problem in my opinion, but I haven't tested it, so we'll wait and see. And I also could be wrong because they didn't actually specify which map. Have they finally done it? They fixed most cases that would cause the death screen in Outpost Rush not to properly display the name of your killer. I don't think, and I read it earlier, I don't think they've done the one where you lag to death afterwards. But yeah, if they've, I mean, Wisticker's some bearded guy. It was nice knowing him, but I'm bored of him. They've made some performance improvements to Coral Divide. Nice. And then the rest is pretty boring. Apart from the fact in Bare Bones, when we do get that back, the encumbrance modifying perks, so your weight perks and your bags and stuff like that, will stick around so you don't become over encumbered just because you've lost access to your bags. We know there's a new map for the arena, and the Ring of Fire now is going to start a little bit sooner on that map because it wasn't really doing anything. Then we just have a lot of fixes that, if I'm honest, I can't see anything interesting. I don't see anything really. I mean, you can't get stuck in a pillar in the arena temple map. It never happened to me, but that would be super annoying. Just a lot of fixes there. I don't think they're that interesting, but you know, I'll leave the patch notes in the description if you want to read it yourself. They've reduced the AFK timer in expeditions, fixed a couple of like respawn points and stuff like that. A lot of fixes. If I'm honest, as I just said, they're just not that interesting. I don't want to sit here and go through them. We'll be here all day. Although I will say that this specific patch doesn't have as many fixes as say like some of the previous ones. That doesn't mean it's any better or worse. It just means they've not added a lot of like, we've fixed a typo. More fixes here, more fixes here. And then we actually come to something that is pretty important and might make me do the worm. I mean, if we weren't getting a gear score increase probably in season 10, then I would probably have to do the worm at this point. What's annoying is one of my characters already has some because I did the worm in the past, but my fresh start character, I never did the worm, and that's sort of the one that I'm playing with, even though I've transferred them to Nisa. But basically, they've added sandworm materia recipes for Trial of the Devourer, named armor pieces. So the people who are trying to get those haste boots, now you can. I'm assuming that haste boots have been nerfed, but I mean, now you can get it if you want it, if you've got the materia. The perks that were added in season 8 have been added to mutations and influence race caches. It's way too late for that, but okay. Still better late than never, I guess. All the schematics now are in Gorgon, the Hive of the Gorgon. The ones that were the artifacts on the season pass, which I just haven't completed, are now available via these. Then we have some more fixes, some more fixes, even more fixes, but we do actually have, if you've got a female body type, you'll now use a more feminine pose when previewing skins. Oh my god, we are finally going full Kuma. And then just extra fixes, right? Nothing crazy here. I think these are going to be impactful for a lot of people. The sandworm materia, this outpost rush map change, I mean, they didn't specify which map, and they should have done, because I mean, maybe I was gonna say maybe it's both, but it has to be Coral Divide because there's no bridges in the other one. Either way, I think that this sounds absolutely like ludicrously stupid, but okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll actually make the game better. Capture the flag is going to be the most important thing. I like this pity rule. Yep, really good there. Changes to the stone form. I think stone form was overused, but it's also one of those ones where you just literally don't have to think. It's just, I'm in trouble, pop heart rune if I have it. Mounts in town, fun, but nothing major. Void gauntlet changes. Yeah, sound good. The void blade reduced weapon damage. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I think that'll do. That'll do enough. Leeching blade going to focus only is going to be huge as well, I think. Leaping strike, getting its stagger removed. Yeah, like I'm a sword and shield Andy. Let me get that out there. I do think the more you don't have a CC bot, the more range could just run wild, but it's probably a good change, let's be honest. Hatchet berserk change is also probably a good change. I'm sort of surprised that that's all it's getting, but maybe that'll be enough, to be honest, especially combined with the haste changes. The flail's getting its little rework. Honestly, I think unless the flail is like the strongest weapon in the game, I can't see me playing it because it feels like garbage to play. I just don't like the way that it plays. Firestaff's getting a nerfed, so yeah, probably deserved. Probably one of the strongest weapons. Slight buff to bow, but nobody cares about that. And then yeah, we have all the haste changes and that kind of jazz. Yeah, overall, I mean, pretty decent, interesting perks, interesting changes, some interesting artifacts as well. Yeah, I don't think the free fall zone. I mean, this seems like catch-up gear that they're just prepping you to like catch up if you want to come back for season 10. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the capture of the flag. I will be playing this as soon as it goes live. Yet again, I think they've got the timing wrong here because I actually think it's 1 p.m. BST and I think it's 12 noon UTC. Amazon, watch me be wrong. One day I'll be wrong with that, and they'll be like, "No, Jay, we were right." Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.